And howdy, this is Edward. Blah. Okay, so day late, technical difficulties. Should everything be everything should be okay now. Should be good. I speak good well now. Sorry about the technical difficulties last week. Glad you're sticking with this. We're just gonna, with the limited equipment I have, we're just not gonna play with that stuff anymore until we get it going right. So some of the little special processing things that I was trying to do, they're done. They're done for the moment. You're listening to the cheapest podcast ever, and until it becomes a little bit less cheap, they're done. It's going to be just simple, straightforward. And now, the horrible theme music. So, hey, hi. This is the short week. So, hi, shorties. This is just going to be me catching up on stuff. There was problems with on YouTube, people telling me how they watched the video and then YouTube not recording anything. There was problems with both the audio podcast and the video podcast as far as how it processed through. So all the plans of this being a case of, hey, we will just, hey, toss this out and get some questions and answers and everyone have a nice back and forth, that's out the window because I think that things got screwed up. Don't know how, but things somehow got screwed up, and with that, we're just gonna barrel through a nice little podcast, basically just me rambling for about half an hour. That's what we're looking at. So, hi, hope everyone's having a good week. I hope everyone enjoyed the horrible theme song as it is on its last legs, because I am definitely going to be working on getting something better. My goal, remember how at the beginning of or at the end of last year I said my goal was to actually just start doing this thing for real, and at the beginning of the year, and bam, doing it for real at the beginning of the year. My goal now is by the end of this month to put this up on iTunes, which means I don't know what that means actually. I don't know what's involved in that. But that is the secondary goal now. Or the second stage goal is to get this onto iTunes, which means I probably need to get a better logo thing instead of just my scribbled out more geek than gay thing with one eyeball peeking out, and also a better theme song. If anybody has any suggestions, yay, give me. I will gladly take any and all suggestions. If anybody wants to write a theme song for me, yay! Gimme! I will take a theme song. Or make up a logo for me. Guess what? Yay! Gimme! I will take a theme song. Or take a logo. So, just tossing that out there. Otherwise, I mean, I have a couple ideas, but I'm not a music writer. I'm not necessarily a logo maker either, so I'm just Edward. Yay, it's me. So, tried catching up on some news items this week. That was actually a big thing for me at work. In between busyness at work, because we're doing the mandatory 10s this week, well, last week and this upcoming week. And that meant a lot of filing, and they're training me to take on a whole new set of responsibilities up there. So There was a lot of me doing stuff time, but there were moments in between where it's like, okay, and now what? So at those moments, I went fishing for news. Um, in interesting gay show news, first of all, thank God they got rid of the drag queen that they got rid of on RuPaul's Drag Race. Now, if we can probably just get rid of Alaska, because I'm kind of tired of her already. She does nothing for me. Um, she has. I know people are like calling her like a glam version um of Sharon Needles, and yeah, if your version of glam means boring, because she's just a bad imitation of Sharon. Even if she came first, Sharon does it better, more originally, and I'm just tired of listening to Alaska whine. So Alaska is kind of my next one that I would like to see go. Uh, the revelation wasn't that big of a revelation. It actually was kind of in line with what we were thinking, transgender. Although we were like going, didn't we do that in season 2? Wasn't that like Tatiana or whatever? But other than that, kind of a run-of-the-mill week. Wish we had gotten to see more of the two teams doing their sing-off-a-thon thing. And I actually really liked the moment of um, Fifi and Sharon, the queens pretending to be Fifi and Sharon, finishing their hated fight with a kiss, because that was so Slash that it appealed to the geek in me, even though I don't really go into the Slash realm so much. My one moment of Slash was me writing a story. And those of you who don't know what Slash is, it's fiction. It's fan fiction, typically taken as a romance or more seedy location between two characters, traditionally male characters. Comes from originally Star Trek, with people writing down that they were doing a Kirk slash Spock fic, and then people just started calling it after that little sign in the middle, slash. Um, and then suddenly you end up with Hobbit piles many years later. So, um, I wrote one as a joke. I wrote one based on serial characters, uh, obscure Quaker serial characters. I'm sure you've all heard of Captain Crunch. For a little while, they had two other serials that had a war between each other. One called Quisp, with the alien with the beanie propeller hat, and the other one called Quake, which originally featured a miner who dug his cereal out of a mine, but then he was reformed into a cowboy who, I don't know how he got his cereal, because cowboys don't typically do mining. So did he rustle up the cereal or something? I don't know. But my slash was a joke slash where the later version of Quake ended up time traveling back to the earlier version of Quake, and smacko wacko, they got it on. Which actually makes it more of a masturbation scene, if you ask me, because he was just with himself. So, Fifi and Sharon Needles together, that was perfect slash. All those people who were Harry Potter Draco slash writers should have just been like quivering in their panties at that moment. That's the whole drag race thing. Kind of curious what's going to happen this week. Caught up on Project Runway, and can't say I was surprised by who went home. Can say I wasn't happy with who went home. I do think that Ben guy should have gone home, and I'm sorry, I still kind of like, now the pink dress was a mistake on the old lady's part, who I can't remember her name. I want to say her name is Pam. I don't know. And the coat, love the coat, but it was wrong for like the type of restaurant it was. but it was a beautiful coat. That skirt was horrible. The shirt thing was horrible. I liked the kilt. I don't know, but I don't know how that Ben. I think his name is Ben. I'm horrible with names on these shows. But the guy who made the skirt for the old lady's coat, how he managed to get by, I don't know, because he messed up two things. She made a very well constructed coat that just happened to be a little dowdy for what they were looking for. He made a horrible skirt, which essentially, how can you mess that up? It was just a plain little black tight skirt. How he messed that up, I don't know. Okay, that should be basics. I mean, I don't sew, and I think I could come up with a little black skirt. Hopefully he'll be gone next week. Hopefully he's done. He will finish self-destructing and he'll be gone. I'm kind of also over the one. Well, I'm tired of the two teams. I'm tired of teams, and one team getting how the team thing's supposed to work and the other team not. But the trick is that with the one team getting how the team's supposed to work, I have absolutely no idea how any of those people really design. No idea. The other team, they keep on losing because they can't figure out how to work as a team. But at the same time, I know what their aesthetics are. I know who I like on their team and who I don't like on their team, and who would be good at doing what. So, Project Runway, I really hope that you figure out a way to get rid of this team thought real fast. That pretty much catches us up on the gay shows part of my life, because I just haven't caught and I know I watch a couple others, but I can't think of what they are. Not a clue. Been reading the book House of Leaves, which came highly recommended as a brilliant horror novel with a romance in it and blah blah blah. It's one of the most pretentious pieces I've ever read. There is a good story in it, and that's how I'm finishing it out. The main story, it involves a person finding a manuscript, a studious manuscript, so there's a whole bunch of footnotes and stuff, regarding a film about a haunted house. The interesting thing part about it is that the film about the haunted house, you can't find any evidence of, and therefore the manuscript may be about something that never existed. But it seems to be having an effect on the person who found it, and therefore possibly the manuscript has an effect and a haunting, and it'll negatively affect or whatever anybody who comes in contact with it. That's kind of the simple setup. The story with the manuscript and the haunted house is actually very fascinating. Even with the footnotes, well done. It has a nice flow to it. I care about those characters and everything. Sadly, the person who found the manuscript, supposedly, he also tells his story in copious footnotes that are of absolutely no value to the story. And I think the writer loves this guy, because there's a good third of the book is this guy's footnotes about his story. And then he wrote up a follow-up book that involves more of that guy's story. So, and this is the reason why this book, part of the reason why this book doesn't work for me is because I don't care about this guy. He has a horrible childhood, maybe. Drug user, liar, tells horrible stories about all the girls he goes out with, and then ends up being paranoid and stuck in his room while working on this book. He admits to changing part of the original manuscript just so we could see how it affects things, and he lies throughout everything. So there's no point for you to even be vaguely interested in his story to try to figure out what's going on, because he, from the very beginning, has set up that he lies and has altered other things that we're supposed to be taking as truth. his story means nothing. His story ruins the book. That and the fact that it is set up in such a way that you're supposed to get the impression that you yourself are looking at the found manuscript. So the pages are all willy-nilly, and there's like, I think it's supposed to be like sticky notes in the middle of pages, although the wording fits perfectly around it. So if it was a sticky note, then someone typed around a sticky note. And columns of information that read upside down, and you have to, and then suddenly you go through 30 pages that have like a sentence per page, and it's supposed to be reflecting all the chaos in the house and da 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 da. I don't know of any book that would ever be published looking like this as a real studious book, which you're supposed to be getting the idea of. It would be one of the worst publishing houses ever. As a footnote to a footnote at the beginning of it, they make a comment about how the editors have tried to contact the person who submitted this to them and have not been able to get in touch with him. That is not a footnote to a footnote. Okay, if you're trying to distance yourself from the truth in the thing, a good publishing house would have put that right up front, not as a footnote to a footnote. And the editor's footnotes to everything kind of proceeds along those lines. They're just bad and nonsense. Every once in a while, yes, the editor's footnotes make sense, but in general, there's no way that a real, again, studious type work, publishing this as a, most likely supposed to be published as nonfiction in its imaginary world of how it was published, there's no way that would be done. Okay, and every time one of those situations pops up, it takes me right out of the book. I have no problem working on a book that requires me to actually think and work on it, do outside research. I have research material in books. I don't mind it being weird and having a really different take on things. One of my favorite horror books that I read recently, which has been made into a movie, is John Dies at the End. Bizarre ass book. Looking forward to finally reading the sequel. I don't mind those. The potential scariness of the main plot has been destroyed by all of the useless story about the guy who discovered the book. So if you read this book, don't read the discoverer's footnotes. Just skip all those. And everything you see that is weird print on the side, just realize it's long, endless lists that have, again, nothing to do with the story. So you can skip those too. Okay, which is what a real publishing house would have done. Or put it in as an appendix, stating, oh, these were found as notes in the process, you know, and maybe printed up a page to show this is what it originally looked like. We put it this way for it be easy, so it's easier for you to actually read and study the material. The main story is good. Don't pay full price for it. The only bad part about it is it does end in such a Hollywood way that it gets rid of the more surreal, quiet terror that was going on in it. Anybody who says that they stopped reading this book because they found it too scary, actually is saying that because they didn't want to hurt the feelings of whoever recommended it to them. That's really what it is. It's borderline unreadable. The only way to really read it is to learn early on what parts to just skip over, what parts to just gloss, you know, and mainly focus on the main story about the house. That actually is a really interesting story, even with all the footnotes. The footnotes are just, for the most part, just little footnotes. Every once in a while there's a little piece of information. And it reads perfectly fine. I would never recommend this book to anyone. I regret the fact that I started reading it, even though I really like the main story. Because it's just horrible. It's by some guy named Danielski or whatever. He's actually the brother of the artist Poe, who did that song, Johnny, that's it, Johnny. Trigger Happy Johnny, or I cannot remember the name of the song. Great album. It's her brother. Her second album actually ties into this book, and there may be a reference to her in the book, which then becomes so weirdly meta, it's not even funny. But yeah, if anyone recommends this book to you, just run. Unless they're willing to hand you a copy and you go about reading the book the way I recommend, and that's to skip over all sorts of shit. Read recently that they're going to be coming up with Disney wants to put out movies related to the Star Wars movies. So in addition to the second or the last set of 3 movies that they're going to be doing with Abrams directing, they're also wanting to do a young Han Solo movie, kind of an origin of Han Solo, and a Boba Fett movie. I don't know how I feel on those. I don't find the Star Wars universe that interesting. Partially because George Lucas has successfully made it into something that really isn't science fiction, but is more half-assed spirituality set in space. So, okay, maybe these will be interesting. Maybe they can fix everything. I don't know. It just sounds like they're just milking the cow dry before it's even like grown up to be a cow. Also read that the TV show Being Human, the British version, is ending. I don't know anything about the American version. I never hear anyone talk about it. The British version was surprisingly good. And I can see why America would want to, or Sci-Fi Channel would want to just steal that idea. I don't know if they did any good at it though. I've never seen it, never had much of an interest in seeing it. So, but the British version, it probably has run its life though, because it seemed to be kind of hitting a spot where you're like going, okay, you've gone this far. How much farther can you go? So that's one of the. Oh, and also I discovered a whole bunch of TV shows that are going to be coming on. Also, like I need to check out on those. If you're a Doctor Who fan, every month they're doing an episode or storyline from an old Doctor. This last one they did the first Doctor's story, the Aztecs. Watch them. There's no such thing as a bad Doctor. There's just bad stories. Okay, each one of the Doctors is a good Doctor. And the Aztecs is one of the key storylines. I actually think the first Doctor, especially the first year of the first Doctor, is really incredibly watchable. Holds up fairly well. They're all black and white. Yes, they were all done on like just sound stages and stuff like that, obviously. And when they're doing the Aztecs, it's a whole bunch of British people trying to pretend that they're South American Indians. But the Aztecs is the storyline that establishes the idea that there are certain things that cannot be changed in time. Okay, they establish that way early on, and that's the storyline that does it. The first Doctor also is the one who introduces the Daleks in a still kind of coldly effective movie or storyline. I found it actually more effective than the Doctor Who movie that they made with Peter Cushing playing the Doctor. The Daleks were kind of scary, even though they just rolled around on static electricity charges on their little planet. So look out for next month. You should be getting the second Doctor. The second Doctor is the one that inspired Matt Smith's interpretation of the Doctor. You can see a lot of the second Doctor in Matt Smith's Doctor. There's not a lot of stories left of the second Doctor because of BBC practices and how they deleted old tapes. So whatever they find, watch it. It's a rare treasure. Okay, and like I said, yes, the stories are dated, the stages are dated, but watch it for what they were doing at the time, and also realize each person who played the Doctor was good. I am actually one of the few people who enjoys the sixth Doctor, Colin Baker, who a lot of people don't like because he was gruff and disagreeable, but he came right after a very passive, easygoing Peter Davison Doctor. Very human, somewhat boyish. And so he was kind of an answer to that. And it's fascinating. If it had had better writing and better, and I feel sorry for the companions at that time. They were stuck with, like, one of them was stuck with doing the worst American accent ever. But it wasn't the Doctor that was the problem. Watch really what he's trying to do with the Doctor and what they were trying to establish, and he's a fascinating character. It's the stories that were bad. Okay? And that's how a lot of these are. They're dated, they're going to be different, but they're going to try to pick the best of the best and ones that relate to what goes on now too. So give those a chance when you can, okay? Hopefully they'll repeat the Aztecs. If not, I'm sure it's on Netflix or something somewhere. I do know it's available on DVD because I have a copy of it. So give the Aztecs a chance. Also, X-Men Days of Future Past is going to be coming out in 2014, and it's going to be the direct sequel to X-Men First Class, which is interesting because Days of Future Past is one of the best X-Men stories out there. It involves time travel from a dystopic future into the past to try to take care of the one situation, or the one key event that happened that started everything rolling towards this dystopic future. As it is in the comic books, it's the future coming back to the present. In the movies, since it's going to be a direct sequel to First Class, it's going to be the present X-Men, I guess, going back to the past X-Men. And as such, they're also expecting to use a lot of the actors that were in the first three movies. We're going to be getting Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine. We're going to be getting Anna Paquin playing Rogue. There's possibility of getting Halle Berry playing Storm. There's going to be Sentinels, the large mutant killing and, genetic probing robots. It looks fascinating. And they may be taking an interesting tack on Magneto becoming a villain and tying him into the assassination of President Kennedy. Which, daring, I would say, just because I picture so many people being offended. But interesting plotline. Also, Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart are expected to play their parts as Magneto and Professor Xavier, respectively, even though we're going to be getting Magneto and Professor Xavier in the past also. So, I'm really curious how this is going to play out. The original story in the comic books also makes at least passing comments about characters that weren't X-Men, but were big in the comic books. Like Spider-Man, that he's been executed by then. Captain America, I recall, was being executed. While they don't own those properties, I am curious if they're going to sneak in characters that they basically can sneak in. Also curious whether or not we're going to be able to get Frasier, Kelsey Grammer coming back as the Beast to see himself earlier on. And there's even talk about Alan Cummings coming back as Nightcrawler. So I'm really looking forward to this, possibly even a little bit more than I am to all the Avengers sequels. That is going to probably be my quick wrap up for this week. Hopefully all the technical difficulties have been taken care of, and you shall be seeing this instead of Sunday, you'll be seeing it Tuesday. But I hope that everyone's having a great week, and as you know, stick around through the closing music because I have a tendency of remembering things and putting them in afterwards. Have a great day. Bye. No, 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 little Starro, you cannot be taking over the world today. No, no, no. You must behave. We shall save your world domination for another time. I said I'd probably be back with something because I always forget things, and lo and behold, I did. Hey, don't forget, there's that VSNA book sale. I believe it's this weekend. Very large used book sale. You want to make sure to be there for that because, you know, it goes to a good cause. And also, it, you know, gives you a chance to get a whole bunch of books for very inexpensive. Okay? So, the VNSA book sale will be starting, it looks like Saturday on February 16th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then Sunday the 17th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Okay, and that's at the Arizona State Fairgrounds. It's the exhibit building, so it's not the Coliseum. It's that building that's actually kind of on the corner. And there will be a line. There's always a line, but what happens is they wait for a little while, and then suddenly, like, the line shrinks like 100 people. So you're only gonna be waiting in the line for maybe about 10 minutes or so usually. You will have to pay for parking. That's just because you're parking at the fairgrounds. So, la la la. Want to say welcome back to Patrick of Scream Queens. Yay! We missed you. He just put out like a really long episode. So if you get a chance, go give Patrick a listen. That's Scream Queens, Queens with a Z. And he's just fun. He's just fun. If you're looking for a good cause, Joshua Tree feeding program, you'll want to give them a look-see. I use look-see. I've heard that that's a taboo word, but I don't know why. But that said, go ahead and check them out. They are a feeding program that help people with HIV and AIDS. Their website is www.jtfp.org. So check them out. Like I said, they're a good cause. If you only have time for one cause this year, why not let it be them? You know. And who only has time for one cause? Let's be real. You got time for more than one cause. That's pretty much my quick little shout outs. Oh, did want to point out something that I just discovered, and that is that there is apparently a show on PBS that's talking all about Shakespeare, and I'm sure there's some Shakespeare geeks out there. First episode, it looks like, was all about Hamlet. I can't believe I missed out on this. Well, I mean, I knew about it, but I didn't know what it was, and so I didn't pay attention because I thought it's gonna be just but no, it was actually really interesting little bits I saw. And the first episode also featured David Tennant as the host because he has starred as Hamlet. To the best of my understanding, they're going to be rotating hosts or switching them out, or however you want to word it. So I don't know if we'll see him as a host again on future episodes, but you see him now. And it's on PBS. You might have to search it because the first episode's already happened. But I know that sometimes they repeat things on PBS. It's not like Logo where they repeat things, but I know sometimes they repeat things. So give it a look, even if the Hamlet one's already gone. Check it out because Shakespeare wrote a lot of really good plays. Okay, not everything's that piece of crap Romeo and Juliet. I'm gonna be. Oh yeah. That was me having a small stroke. So, don't forget Comic-Con is coming up in May. You want to make sure to be here for that. That's Memorial Day weekend. Get your tickets while you can. And the earlier you get your tickets, the cheaper they are. That's just how it works. And go ahead and just get a whole weekend pass. It's just easier that way. It's only going to cost you like maybe $10 more for the whole weekend than it would be for a single day. And that way you have the option of coming and going as you wish. So that's what I highly recommend. That said, I believe... and about the literary stuff that I talked about earlier, House of Leaves. Like I said, if you want to read it, or if someone recommends it, go ahead and read it. Just read the main story and ignore all the incredibly just self-indulgent, organization of the book, and forget the secondary footnotes about the drug guy who gets paranoid while he's reading the book and wants to bang a stripper. Stupid ass story. The main story is actually really compelling. It reads like a text, as it should, because that's what it's intended to be. So that one's actually very compelling. If you're in the mood for something a little unusual and you want a little bit more difficult of a read, go back to a classic. Try the Illuminati trilogy, where they shift tenses and persons throughout the whole book, and it has the best use of a Deus Ex Machina I've ever encountered. Possibly the only good use of one I've ever encountered. So, Illuminati trilogy, highly recommend. House of Leaves, recommend only if you know that you're able to focus on part of it and are good at ignoring extraneous bits of crap that surround a text. If you're able to do that, it's really compelling. So that said, signing off for this week. Next week I'll be back. I don't think we're doing this short week, long week thing anymore. I think we're just doing what I decided to do. So this will probably be the last of the short shows, and from this point on, you gets what you gets. The closing song, since this is a leftover of the terror broadcast from last week that apparently had so many problems that I don't even know if anyone was able to see it or hear it, I'm gonna put on one of the more terrifying songs you'll ever run into. I'm gonna play the one and only song I know of that Tina Yothers did. Have a good week.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
Okay. Everybody stick around? Kind of hope you all stuck around, because I'm just tagging this on at the end. If you wanted to give up after you heard Tina Yothers, which, okay, gotta love her, she tried, but at the same time, okay. Um, in case you couldn't hear that, that was my eyes rolling around in the back of my head as I'm trying to figure out polite things to say about Tina Yothers, other than at least she's not Jennifer Lopez. Um, but if you stuck around, I decided, what the hell, I'm going to treat you all to a little short story. And when I say little short story, I mean it's a really short story. It actually was part of a in-class assignment, optional in-class assignment, so it wasn't like a real assignment, it was extra credit, shall we say. And the instructor decided to take the class in some sort of creative writing exercise type mode. And every week she would provide, like, I think 3 different sentences, and the challenge was to come up with a short story or whatever that launched from those sentences. I typically took it as, let's see if I can incorporate that sentence into the whole thing. I only did 4 out of the, I think, 15, because I was pretty much the only one who was doing the extra credit. Some people did like 1 or 2. I did 4. And I actually took it as kind of an interesting little challenge to try to directly incorporate the phrasing instead of just like rearranging it, which a lot of other people did and stuff like that. This one, the very last sentence is the challenge sentence. So there's no name for this, but enjoy, and hopefully I don't stumble over my own words. That's, in case you're curious, that's like fading music for going to the story. Or not music, but sound effects. First, there was the classic puddle of water at the top of the stairs. Hey, look at that, I skipped a part. That's right, I needed to look at something. So, erase that first part. We'll get to that in just 3 paragraphs. So, the end was disgusting and in poor taste. He would probably get in trouble for it, but it didn't matter to him anymore. An end was an end, and that was all that mattered to him. Clartza couldn't complain. As a lesser demon, when the big guy gives you a job, you don't argue or think about it, you just do it. And while he couldn't think of what the old lady had done to deserve the wrath of the Dark Lord, it wasn't too far out of the range of possibility to imagine. She was horrible. Forever cranky and unpleasant to be around, one could almost imagine any sort of atrocity being performed by her at some time. But it still was a horrible job. A demon at his level wasn't allowed to come in direct contact with a mortal, so devious machinations had to be developed to do her in. But it didn't matter how clever or devious he was, she wouldn't die. First, there was a classic puddle of water at the top of the stairs. While it did cause her to fall down 2 flights of stairs, all it did was break her ankle. This resulted in weeks of her complaints while she hobbled around on crutches. Next, he cut the brake line in her car. It would mean some collateral damage with the guy hired to drive her around while she healed, but sometimes things like this couldn't be avoided. Well, there was collateral damage, but the target was still walking around. She not only refused to go to the funeral of the driver, but insisted on suing his family for whiplash. He pulled in some favors and had a meteor shower diverted to her house, but this just destroyed her home, causing her to kick her daughter out of her old home that she had code-signed on, and spend more time to complain about not only the ankle and the whiplash, but also the new sprained wrist. Each successive attempt met the same fate. Fires, floods, wild wolves, even an accidental delivery of weapons-grade plutonium to her jacuzzi. Nothing killed her. Sure, she was injured each time, but it just made her crankier and less agreeable to be around. She had become his own personal Rasputin, and each attempt made him more determined to kill her. Every poisonous breath she breathed made him long for the welcome torments of the nether region. Finally, he had had enough. A mixture of laxatives, Drano, and belladonna, for that classic touch, poured surreptitiously into her afternoon whiskey sour, had to finally do the trick. He feared it was going to be too direct, and that he would be discovered, but it didn't matter to him anymore. She had to die, and die now. The gurglings in her bowels happened remarkably fast. She barely had time to make it to the toilet before she virtually exploded out of every orifice. It was messy. She might have even seen him in her final moments, and the resulting smell would never be washed out of this room. But it was finally over. He could go home now. With how his luck had been lately, she would probably be there waiting for him, waiting to tell him how she was now his boss or something, but it didn't matter. For the moment she was gone, he was done, and he was happy. Stopping for a moment, he grabbed something from her beauty cabinet, scribbled a quick message, and vanished in a poof of ochre smoke. 3 days later, authorities would be called out because of the offensive smell coming from her property. After busting in the door, they would find her body slumped on the toilet. A stench filled the room that was unaffected by the added odor of the rotting corpse. And over her head, written in blood-red lipstick on the restroom wall, were these 4 words: "Some deaths take forever." Okay, I hope I didn't stumble too much on that while I read it. See you next week, Sunday. And I won't be like 2 days tardy this next time, I don't believe, because I'll have all of the technical difficulties all ironed out that slowed down this week. Bye!